Let's talk about this Bitcoin pattern. You got economic data like retail sales, jobless claims, and so forth, but none will move markets as much as the FOMC meeting, which is coming this Wednesday. Will Powell pause rates for first time in a very long time? We pause rates so that Fed fund rate won't go up and all the other rates that follow it won't go up either. There's a 75% chance, as of right now, that we will get a pause. It's 75% chance. We'll look forward to these two events and see what happens. So they could definitely drive markets higher this week. I mean, Mark Cuban came out and said it's nearly impossible to know what is and what is not a security in the U.S. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Gary made it virtually impossible to know what is a security, what isn't a security. If you're a project, are you a security? If you're on ETH, are you a security? If you're trading on the open market, are you a security? If you're on a DEX, are you a security? If you have the ability to stake it, are you a security? Everything seems to be yes. Okay? And we have Congress people that disagrees. Like Senator Loomis, who she's been very pro innovation, pro crypto, pro framework. Basically, let's just get a framework done. Okay, so projects know what to expect and what to follow, but no one knows right now. And even Mark Cuban went and looked at the Huey test and looked at what Gary keeps saying. Well, the rules are clear. Just follow the Huey test. Well, I mean, if you look at it, even Mark Cuban's like, it's not clear. Some are claiming it's scary. His strings are being pulled. Some speculate that maybe the Ripple case is coming to a conclusion and he has to show face or save his job. Okay, basically, he let FTX destroy a lot of people. He was also very close with FTX himself. In fact, there was rumors that SBF and Gary had a couple of lunches and they were talking about letting FTX get licensed to trade, I believe at the time, derivatives or options, one of the two. And they would have been the very first exchange in the U.S. to be allowed to do so. There's derivatives and stuff outside the U.S., but they were supposed to be the first U.S.-based exchange to get that, right? So there was definitely ties between SBF and Gary. And people know that. People call them out. So Chamath is thinking this is his way to cover his ass and basically, attack everyone else, right? To kind of show, okay, no, we're taking our job seriously. Outside the U.S., well, why not a second U.S. office, right? It would probably be because of what's going on in the U.S. You got a lot of VCs that's moving out. You have certainly a lot of projects that's moving out. These all suck, right? Why should they go elsewhere? They should stay in the U.S. and innovate and make everyone better. But instead, they're moving shop. And Hong Kong knows this too. Hong Kong even invited Coinbase to set up shop over there. And they're like, hey, we'll welcome you, Coinbase. We know what Gary's doing to you. Come over here. That would be horrible if Coinbase left the U.S., okay? That would be one of those like black swan events. Like if Brian Armstrong's like, we had enough, we're moving out of the U.S. He threatened that like a month ago, but then he backtracks like, no, we're nowhere close to that. But if one day Coinbase is really driven out of the U.S., that would be very bad. That would be the start to the end of crypto in the U.S. Bitcoin, diamond hands, unfazed. I am a diamond hand. Hopefully you guys are too. I know most people are not. It's hard to be diamond hand. I mean, I get it. When you see your portfolio go down 10, 15, 20, 25%, it sucks, right? It really does. And no one could predict these unpredictable moves by the SEC or Gary or any macro conditions out there, right? But we know what's coming for Bitcoin. We know it's the greatest store of value, the greatest hedge against inflation. All the shenanigans that our governments are doing, including the central banks and Fed, right, and all the price hikes due to inflation, well, it's all solved by Bitcoin. That's why strong hands are not leaving. Whales continue to buy and buy and buy. I covered this last night. Whales bought approximately 1,000 Bitcoins per day for the last 2 months. Think about it. You know this pattern right here that's pretty obvious, that after X amount of days, then you have X amount of days where you start heading higher. And that is the halving event. Look at it. 2 cycles ago, you have 539 days leading up to a halving event, and then boom, right? Then from the bottom, the last cycle from the bottom all the way to halving event, 518 days, and then boom, 546 days of goodness, right? Even though we had a scary dip in the middle, but we ended up making a new high, right? So where are we to the halving event? Well, we're not quite there yet. But, I mean, usually leading up to halving event, you have good times or sideways times, right? It may get a little boring, and we may go sideways for a little bit. But you know what? You don't want to miss that next 500-something days after the halving event. Here's another look of what happens after each halving event, right? Going all the way back to the very first cycle, second cycle, third cycle. We are in our fourth cycle. You can see leading up to the halving event, usually you have a very good recovery. But 2020, 2021 was a little bit different because we had that COVID crash. That was a very weird time, right? But just look at it. The pattern is simple, right? Okay, you look at the number of HODLed coins continues to skyrocket, and some of this is including lost Bitcoins that will be lost forever. This is close to 8 million Bitcoins. 8 million Bitcoins. Keep in mind, there's only like 19.5 that's been released. So if you remove 8 million out of that, you're left with only like 11 million, less than 12 million Bitcoins circulating out there. And there's a lot more that's being HODLed. This is just considered like lost, okay? The lost Bitcoins that will never, ever, ever be touched. Bitcoin is healthier now, according to its fundamentals, than it's ever been. And here's part of it. The hash rate is, again, all-time high. All-time high. So, there. Good stuff.